Alright, we are recording. So, earlier today I watched a video from Level 1 Techs. It was their review of the Sapphire RX 7900 XT Pulse graphics card. And in it, Wendell mentions how he wants to change the weighting, or at least is interested in considering a change in the weighting of the 0.1% lows. Well, I have this nice tool and lots of data to go into it. That I can use for processing data in interacting with it. So I thought I would go through and show why yes, take that time, Wendell, dive into the stats, and see what you can pull out, because there are times that the 0.1% low is very inappropriate to use. And I happen to have some in my data that does show this clearly. I do want to quickly explain, though, for anyone looking, I work in frame time, not frame rate. I'm showing it in frame rate with FPS. But the actual data itself is in frame time. It's this. Which is why I'm showing the 99% and 99.9% highs, because those are the 1% and 0.1% lows in frame rate. But yeah, so it's longer frame times is lower frame. Turn that. This is what I really want to show. So this is a quantile graph. So the way it works, and shouldn't have seen that yet. Kind of spoiled it a little bit, but we'll come back to it. So the way this graph works is it's all the data that I collected for this run, which, by the way, it's 5 minutes worth of data, so there's a lot of dots here. It's sorted from lowest to highest, and the real measurement is currently on the y-axis. The x-axis is currently in percentiles, which is, percentiles 0 to 100, quantile, what I call the graph, is 0 to 1. Same exact idea, it's just a factor of 100 between them. So it's how you're showing. Normally a quantile graph, though, would actually be in z-scores. So that's the number of standard deviations away from the mean or median. Can't remember which. I do have the median marked here, though. That's what the 50th percentile. Now I've also got these boxes, as you can see. So we've got 3 blue and 2 red. And they trace from like the 99% high, which, remember, that's the 1% low, goes up to the data and then over to whatever the measurement is, and same thing with the 99.9% high, up and over. Now, we're going to take a better look at this by doing that. Like I said, I can interact with the data. So, we've zoomed in here, so we can see now the 1% low and the 0.1% low for frame rate. Remember frame time? Yeah. I'll eventually stop saying that. Now you can see this dotted green line. At least I hope that comes through in the video. This line, all it does is connect from the 1% to the 99%. And as you can see, basically all of these, the data is right on that line. And it is. When we look very closely here, it is online, and then it gets a little bit off. The data gets a little bit off, and then it gets a lot off. So over here, we undoubtedly have outlier data. And being an outlier means it is not representative of the data. The bulk of the data is very consistent. I mean, it's all on that line. That's amazing. A lot of games won't do that. A lot of games will have more variation. Not too much. They'll still be very stable, but not... This is tremendous. But look at that. How big a change it is. And this is at that 0.1% low. So yeah, we are in the outliers. This is not representative. We shouldn't use a 0.1% low. That would be completely and utterly inappropriate to do. So why did some people do it? I honestly think it's because a lot of people don't look at graphs like that. They don't investigate it. So Wendell, that's what I'm suggesting. If you want to, improve the data that you're giving, you got to look at a graph like this. And as you can see, I got a number of graphs. I got a summary graph that's a lot like what you guys do use. Coarse graph, I didn't render that out. I already have frequency though. So this is just, the distribution of the data shown one way, how common the data is at any point. This is another way to view the distribution of the data. And then these, which I call them consecutive difference, because when I thought of them, that's how I named them. I've since learned about lag plots, and apparently that's what those are. But it's like, I got all these graphs. This, though, is the most important. If I were to try to convince anyone that if they're like, hey, I want to improve my work, what can I do? This graph. This is the graph you want to use. Because it lets you say, yeah, 0.1% low. No, we shouldn't use it. Let's pull it into about there. So this is, oh, okay, 99.78. So 99.8. We do have a little bit, those first two dots have actually moved off. And here we can actually go to 99.8. So instead of the 0.1% low, we want the 0.2% low. Okay, and here, let's go back to the tables. I'm fancy. 99.8. Look at the difference here. Look at that difference. About 40 to 35 between 0.8%. That actually isn't that unreasonable. But from 99.8, so the 0.2 to 0.1 on that one, look at that swing. That's a big swing in frame rate. And here, if we make it frame time, yeah, it just so happens that we actually turn out kind of linear frame rate and frame time and around this. But look at that. That's 7 milliseconds difference from a 0.1% change. 0.1%. That is why, yeah, don't use the 0.1% low for this. You'd want to look at this graph and be like, oh, I need to move it in, and then you do. And then you do. Now you can also see here that in DirectX 11, we do have a similar turn, although the turn does behave a little different. Let me try to... It was just constantly redrawing itself because it kept... Now it did start... Yeah, it actually started the turn earlier with DirectX 11. This is the same path. I took the exact same path. Everything is the same, except for the API. It started to turn away sooner. But we do still have that leap, and that leap is actually a little bit later. But it still is. It starts to turn sooner, but it's still, I mean, it's like you could probably... That might be 0.4. Yeah, 0.4 would be safe, so 0.6% instead of the 0.1%. I don't think... Okay, yes, we're starting to have the turn here at the 0.4%. So it is, things like that. All right. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you, because I saw somebody in the comments talking about how, hey, if you're going to do that, great. How about you start telling us what the amount of data is below a certain value? Okay, well, 60 FPS is what you typically use. And we've got this red line here, and you can see it, it's about over here. So that's... I actually don't remember. But we can find out with this. So 16.67. So now what this is going to do is just going to bring up the bottom, and this table will also update. So now we are only looking between 16.67, so 60 FPS, and 66.46 milliseconds at the top, which goes between 4.48%, which look, this is 4.48, this is 1. It's very nonlinear. And 99.97. So there's 95.5% of the data is actually below 60 FPS, because it's longer frame time. So we can see that here, but also if we come back to tables here, it's right here. So actually the graph is a little bit off. The table I would trust. Yeah, and at 30 FPS though it's very stable. Which can, 55, 50, 45. So yeah, I mean you're definitely solid 45. But even the 1080 for Dying Light 2, paragliding, DirectX 12, the paragliding is just what I named the path. But the high preset, yeah, it's a bit more than the 1080 can truly handle. So yeah, but that's beside the point of this video. The point of this video is that yeah, you can totally get those stats out. I have them right here, and I already shared. I have a version of this applet up online. I shared a link via Twitter and YouTube comments. Maybe they'll see it and experiment and, decide that, hey, this is something that they want. they can get in touch with me, or this is all up on GitHub. Not the data, but all the scripts behind this are up on GitHub. Have at it, Wendell Level 1 Text. Have at it, anyone. Improve your stats. It's been really lonely for me, no one else using stats like this. Okay? It's been like that for years. Seriously, up your game, because this is awesome. In case you can't tell, I have a math. I think it helps. Goodbye.